There are a number of words which have crept into our language which people didn't know years ago. For instance, words like email, internet, Facebook, mobile phone weren't known when I was young, and that wasn't yesterday. In my job, before I retired, I was involved in getting people to use email on the World Wide Web for the first time when it came out. There are lots and lots of stories I can tell you about that, but that's for another time. One word that's crept into our language recently, which can be connected to computing, is influencer. One type of influencer is a social media influencer. So, what is a social media influencer? Well, a social media influencer is like a popular friend online who shares things that they like with lots of people, sometimes even getting paid to talk about certain products or ideas, which can make others want to try these things too. And that's just like when your best friend tells you about a cool new toy they've got. In particular, we see many social media influencers who use YouTube, Instagram or TikTok to share videos, photos and stories with their followers. Now, a word of warning here. Just like you wouldn't believe everything your friend says, you should think carefully about what an influencer tells you to do. Anyway, I think it's highly unlikely that we've any social media influencers here today. Are there any social media influencers today? Yes, we've got one. However, I think we won't have many others here. But, do you know what? There are other ways that you can be an influencer. And there, in that slide, is a clue. Now, I wonder if anybody knows what kind of influencer you can be. Anybody got any idea? It's correct. I heard somebody say that, a binfluencer, or bin influencer. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, but never mind. Yes, you can be a bin influencer. Now, you may be wondering what a bin influencer is. A bin influencer is a person on the street who takes the lead in putting out the correct waste and recycling bins on the correct day, prompting neighbours to follow suit. Now, in our street, my neighbours like to keep the pavement clear of bins. So as soon as the bin lorry comes, they take their own and the person at either side's bin off the street. And often I'm out and I don't get to do it. But when I'm in, as soon as I see the bin lorry coming past the window, I dive out to try and get out before the others do. But this week, I had a bit of a dilemma. Now, like the rest of Fife, our blue, that's a non-recycling rubbish bin, and the brown, for garden and food waste, go out together. But in the winter, the brown bin only goes out once a month. Now, one neighbour put out their brown and blue bins, despite the bin influencer only putting their blue one out. Now, once the blue bin was emptied, what was I to do? Their brown bin was still out and there was no others out. Would I put it back at their garden gate and hope they didn't think that I'd moved it before it was emptied? So I decided to move it. And sure enough, a little later, our next door neighbour came out and said, their bin was still full, why had I moved it? I explained the brown bins weren't being emptied today. I was asked, how did I know that? I said, I checked the calendar online. Of course, I could have said, I looked at which bin the bin influencer had put out. Now, as this story shows, we get a bit confused with the different bins. But do you know, it didn't make me stop and think and realise that we have bins for plastic, paper and garden waste. And you know, there's not very much goes into our landfill blue bin at all now. Now, recycling is one way that we can help to look after God's creation. Ray is leading us at the moment through some Psalms in the Bible. And Psalm 8 talks about God's creation and how God has put us in charge of his creation. Here are some verses from Psalm 8. Lord, our Lord, your name is the most wonderful in all the earth. From the mouths of children and babies come songs of praise to you. I look at the heavens that you have made with your hands. And I wonder, why are people so important to you? You put them in charge of everything you made. You put everything under their control. People rule over the sheep and cattle and all the wild animals. They rule over the birds in the sky and the fish that swim in the sea. Lord, our Lord, your name is the most wonderful name in all the earth. So, not only does God love us, he gives us a job to do. Isn't that wonderful? Like God, creator of the whole universe, actually gives us a job. And that job is to look after his creation. So, it's important that we care about God's world. And here at Viewfield, we have a group called 131. The 131 vision is to enable the people, groups and buildings that make up our Viewfield family to protect the very good world that God has entrusted to our care. Now, Kirsten Ashington is the 131 coordinator, with Kathy Halpin, Brian Stanley, John Taylor and myself on the group. Now, if you want to know more or have suggestions about how we can help look after God's creation in the church, then either speak to us in person or contact us via the office. So, could you be an influencer, perhaps an influencer for looking after God's wonderful creation? Don't just leave it up to the people on the group on 131, but you too can be involved in different ways, being an influencer, looking after God's wonderful creation.